Hey class, and it's time to learn about the chicken that we eat. Okay, poultry packaging and considerations when we have to pack poultry. Okay, so raw poultry meat usually has a relatively high pH, which is usually 5.6 for breast muzzle and up to 6.4 for leg muzzle. As you can see, it's near to the neutral, which readily supports the growth of microorganisms when stored under chill or even ambient conditions. So we have here a picture of a pinatayong manok, or in English, it's the standing cock. Okay, so we have here. Now let's talk about the pigments of poultry meat. So poultry meat has low concentrations of myoglobin and high rate of O2 consumption. It actually just dissolves O2 readily, which means that little O2MB is formed. Hence, since we know that O2MB is the one creating the color red, and little O2MB is being created for poultry, then therefore the poultry does not look red, which is actually what we want to happen to our poultry. Customers are therefore accustomed to poultry meat where MB and met MB pigments are dominant. It's pale, it's white. Okay, when we see let's say some kind of a drumstick, for example, okay, or breast cuts, and they look red, then you would really wonder if it's bloody. Okay, but if it's white, that's what we want. We don't want the red. We don't want O2MB as consumers. We don't want O2MB in our poultry. Okay, poultry meat compared to red beef. So since color is not a big concern, then the major limiting factor is now the microbial spoilage. Whereas in red meat, we have both of them, color and microbial spoilage. But since we don't really care much about the color of poultry here, and there's not really much ado about the color, uh, it's more of microbial spoilage. Also, we have also already learned how to control microbial spoilage, which are very, very similar to the one in red meat. So this is just a very short topic. We will just be discussing the let's say the specific microbes which usually grow in our poultry, but controlling them would be more or less just the same as with our discussion in red meat. So temperature, the gas atmosphere, etc., etc. So for poultry though, the common spoilage microbes are Pseudomonas species, the Achromobacter, and the Enterobacteria. And for pathogens, okay, the spoilage bacteria will be the one to spoil it, and the pathogens, when ingested, will give a sickness. So we have the Salmonella, the Staphylococcus aureus, and Clostridium perfringens. So if you're employed in a company which, let's say, packages this kind of product, usually you will have microbiologists along with in your QA, and their job is really to check if your food is safe. Okay, so they usually check these particular microbes to check if it is safe. So what happens again? We could just remove the oxygen so that our aerobic bacteria, like our spoilage organisms and those pathogens, will not grow. Okay. So one example, you could use MAP, which has been discussed in the red meat section, and you could also use vacuum packaging. However, again, since we're removing the oxygen, we're turning the environment uh into anaerobic environment, and we all know now that the lactic acid bacteria usually grows in anaerobic environment. So that's what happens here. Okay, so just as a consideration, of course, again, map is also used. So in your book there was a rather long discussion there about the different gas compositions, different what else, there are different bacteria that you have to study, etc. You could use map. Okay, you could use map to package your poultry, but just consider that when you use map, some pathogenic bacteria would actually start to grow. Okay, we have discussed that, right? Okay, when we every time we change the oxygen, carbon dioxide, or gas composition, bacteria will be different. So we have here, for example, this would not be really good bacteria. Okay, we want to avoid them, like the C. jejuni, L. monocytogenes, and A. hydrophilia. They really has lot of off odors and off flavors. So you could, okay, should they survive, you could change your map. Okay, you could just modify your gas atmosphere there. If your product is not packaged in map, then you don't have much problem. Only the problem is on spoilage. Okay, so again, map is MAP is not really common here. I don't think it's really common here in the Philippines. It has a lot of investment, but maybe in USA or other first world countries, they have a lot, especially for the families who buy a lot, not in the wet market, but in grocery stores. Okay, but basically the main gist here is just control your microbes. Okay, of course, using one control will have another effect, like example using vacuum pack or using MAP would kill one microbe, but it will have another microbe growing. So you just balance, okay, which is your priority. There's also just a short description there that most studies are done on chicken, and there should be more studies for other types of poultry like turkey and duck. Okay, so if you want to go for if you want to marry agriculture and packaging, then you could go for studies. And in fact, if only we have the map, map equipment in our laboratory, we could again open up a lot of studies. So that would be it for poultry. Our last topic for flesh foods is seafood.